Recently, Red Dead Redemption 2 got released and there was this one mechanic that got my attention, and that is looting dead bodies. In today's video we are going to learn how to recreate that in Unreal Engine 4. We are going to start by going into our content browser, and in here we are going to create a new blueprint class. For this one I'm going to use a character, so let's call this enemy for now. Remember, you can call these as you want. And so for this tutorial I've got a custom skeletal mesh. I got it from Mixamo and you can get it from there as well. You're going to find some neat animations for it as well there, and you can use those in your game. Alright, let me rotate this as well. Okay, and let's create an animation blueprint. So we are going to be able to set an animation for this guy. So let's say enemy BB. Going to create a new state machine. Add new state machine. I'm not going to name it. As well, from the entry I'm going to add a new state. I'm not going to name this as well. And I'm just going to get here an idling animation. Let's compile, and as you can see now this guy is going to idle. And now in our enemy we are going to set the enemy class to be that exact enemy BB. And now as you can see it is going to idle. As well, let's go to our capsule component and let's uncheck hidden in game so we can see this while we are going to be in game. Alright, and now we are going to create a custom event. So add custom event, and let's call this die, because we are going to kill our enemy at some point. Here we are going to drag our mesh and we are going to set simulate physics to be true, and as well we are going to set enabled collision, so set collision enabled, and in here the type is going to be collision enabled. Alright, and from event gameplay we are going to call die, because we want to see how this is going to work in the game, because for now we can't kill it. Alright, and now you can see we are going to have our character with a ragdoll, but we are going to have this capsule which is not going to move. You just need to set up the blueprint for it, and it is going to, you can either just set it to have no collision at all, or you can just let it be like that. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to get the capsule component, and I'm going to set collision enabled, no collision, and from the character movement I'm going to set the gravity scale to be 0, so it is not going to fall. Let's compile and let's play once again, and as you can see it is not going to fall, and we can get through this capsule component. Alright, so everything is alright for now. Let's create two new variables which we are going to use a little bit later. So I'm going to have here a variable, a boolean. Let's call these dead, so is dead actually. Let's compile, and again a new variable which is going to be can be looted, and as well it's going to be a boolean. So after we are going to die, so our enemy is going to die, we want to set both to be true. Okay, let's compile as well. And now that we have both of these true, we will need to go into our viewport and add a sphere collision. So this sphere is going to check if our character is able, so it's in the radius to loot this enemy. We're going to compile, and we are also going to uncheck hidden in game. So uncheck, and let's see how big it is. It's not too big, so I think this is going to work just fine for me. Alright, so on component begin overlap, and on component end overlap we are going to work with this for now. So from the other character I'm going to cast to my character, but first I'm going to check if I'm dead. So branch here, if I'm dead I'm going to cast to it. Alright, and as well from the end overlap, if it is going to be dead, from the other character I'm going to cast to my character. Alright, now let's compile, and now we are going to go into our character. Alright, now that we are in our character we are going to create a new variable. Let's call this enemy array. In here we are going to set the variable type to be enemy. So you're going to get this variable type based on the name of your blueprint of your enemy. Alright, and the variable type is going to be an array as well. So an array of enemies. Let's compile, And back into our enemy, we are going to go in the event graph, and from the onComponent begin overlap, and from the first cast, we are going to get enemy array, and we are going to add another item, and from the second cast, from onComponent end overlap, we are going to get enemy array, and we are going to remove an item. And both of these are going to be self, so self is going to be a reference to this enemy, right? Just plug this in here, and now everything should work. And now before continuing, there is one thing that we need to do, is to see how we can kill the actual enemy. So we are going to get here a custom event, not a custom event, an input action. So I'm going to have here fire. In order to get one of those, you just need to go to edit, project settings, let it load for a second, then into input, action mappings, click on this plus button, give it a name, so for me that is fire, and the button, for me that being leftmost button. Let's close this and back into our character. In here, from pressed, we are going to do a line trace, so I already have a function for that, and let's get in it to see what I did here. So I'm going to get a component, and that component is going to be the camera. From the camera, I'm going to get the world location, and I'm going to plug that in the start. So in the start of a line trace by channel. Then from the camera, I'm going to get the forward vector, going to multiply it with a float, and the float for me is going to be a really big one, so let's say 10,000. Right, back into our function, going to multiply the forward vector with this float, then I'm going to add the world location and the forward vector, and I'm going to plug that in the end. And then I'm just going to get a return node, and every variable is going to be an output. Alright, and from here what I want to check is if we hit anything, and it's going to be checked by the return value. And if we did hit something, I want to get a hit actor and see if I can cast with it to an enemy. So cast to enemy. If the hit actor is going to be an enemy, the cast is going to be successful, which means that we can access functions and variables. So from as enemy, I'm going to call die. And now let's see if this is working. Make sure that in your enemy you don't have the event begin play with the die function anymore. And let's see if this is working. Here is my enemy, and it seems that it is not working, and it seems that we are not even hitting the guy right here. Alright, so let's check what's wrong. So in our capture component, here let's go to collision presets, custom, and as you can see for me the visibility is ignore. Let's go to and set it to be blocked. Alright, and as you can see now it is working. So it's just working just fine. And now let's see how we can actually loot the guy. Back into our character, we are going to get here an input action that is going to be used for me, and it's going to be bound to my E button. And here we want to get an enemy array. From here we are going to get a copy with the index to be 0, and the reason for that is being, even if we are going to remove the element with the index 0 from this array, all the other items are going to reposition themselves in the array, so therefore the 0 position of the array is never going to be null, only if the array has 0 elements. So we are going to get this, if this is valid. So if this is valid, we are going to continue the script. We are going to get is dead. And as well we are going to get can be looted. But actually there's a simpler way to do this. So let's just delete this and back into our enemy. Instead of just having the isDead variable, I'm going to get the can be looted, and I'm going to have an and boolean. Right, and boolean. I'm going to plug this in the conditions. So let's get the logic done a little bit here. I'm going to add this enemy to be a part of the array only if we can loot it and only if it is going to be dead. So by doing this, I don't have to check here those. So it is going to be a little bit cleaner, and maybe the performance is going to be a little bit better as well. So if this is going to be valid, we are going to have here a timeline. So add timeline, let's call this delay. So I'm going to explain a little bit later why we are doing this. From isValid we are going to plug in play from start and from released to stop. And let's get into the timeline. The length is going to be 1 second. So the reason why we are doing here a timeline and not a delay, so a normal delay node, is because with the timeline we can use the update and the finished pins, and as well we can stop the delay from working, which we can't do with this one. Alright, so from finished we are going to run our script. From here we are going to check once again if this is valid, and the reason why we are doing that is because after 1 second there is a chance of this getting deleted, and so it is not going to be valid anymore. But as well, this might never happen, but it's just a way to be sure that you're not going to get any errors. From isValid we are going to have a sequence, and from the then one, so make sure that you're going to do this part from the last pin of your sequence. We are going to get from the enemy array get with the index 0. We are going to remove, so from the enemy array remove item with the index 0. Alright, but first we are going to set can be looted to be false. Alright, just plug this in here. Let's straighten the connection and let's make this look nice. So I'm just going to add some reroute nodes. Alright, now that the code is a little cleaner, let me explain why we are always going to use the last pin of a sequence. So let's read what a sequence does. Executes a series of pins in order. That means that we are going to start with the then 0 followed by then 1. That means that at the end of this part we want to set can be looted to be false, and we want to remove this. Now we are going to go into our enemy and we are going to create a new variable. Let's call this tag, and this is going to be a name. So the variable type is going to be a name. Alright, and now what we'll do is that we'll get from the get 0, so from enemy array get the item with index 0. We are going to get tag, so get tag. Make sure that you compiled your enemy. Alright, and from here we are going to have a switch, so switch on name from then 0. Alright, let's compile and let's go a little bit into our enemy and let's make the tag to be visible. So we are going to have here an I, as you can see, and now it is going to be a public variable. Let's set the default tag to be cubes. I'm going to explain later why we are using cubes. Alright, and let's just get some more of these AIs in our world, and we are going to have here different tags. So I'm going to have two types of tags, cubes and spheres. Alright, so these two are going to be spheres and the other two are going to be cubes. So here you're going to need to use the tags that you want, right? So because I don't have any special items to receive from looting, I'm going to use cubes and spheres, but they're not going to be physically, they're going to be stored in variables. You can do the same, and for example in Red Dead Redemption 2 you can loot from the enemy, you can loot ammunition for your guns, so as well you can have here ammo or something like that. Alright, and here we are going to add two pins because I'm going to have two types, and from the pin 1, so I'm going to go on the switch on name, pin names, and here case 0 I'm going to have cubes, and on the case 1 I'm going to have spheres. Also be careful, this is case sensitive, so make sure that you're going to have here a capital C, because I'm going to have here a capital C, so don't mess that up. Alright, let's create a new variable, and I'm going to call this items in inventory, and it's going to be an array, and it's going to be an integer array. Let's compile. And now from cubes we are going to run a piece of script, and from spheres we are going to run a piece of script. In the array that we just created we are going to add two new elements. The first one for me is going to represent the cubes, and the second one is going to represent my spheres. Alright, and from cubes we are going to drag the array, and we are going to set array element. The index is going to be 0. We are going to get a copy with the index 0. Right, and we are going to set the item to be its current value, so integer plus a random integer in range from 1 to, let's say, 5. I'm going to plug this in item. I'm going to copy this, and from spheres I'm just going to do the same thing, but I'm going to change the index to 1 everywhere. So there's probably a better way to do this with multiple items, because if you have, let's say, 20 types of loot that you can get from enemies, you can then make something that is going to calculate exactly what you want to get and how much. So based on the tag, you can do a function and stuff like that. But for me, I'm only going to have 2 types, so there's no need for that. Alright, I'm going to get event tick here. So event tick. I am going to get here print string. So I'm going to get 2 print strings with the duration 0. I'm going to append from the in string. So this is only going to be for debugging. Alright, so because I want to be able to see the values of my cubes and spheres. So get the copy with the index 0, and just going to plug this in here and make the same thing for the other ones with the index to be 1, and instead of cubes we're going to have here spheres. Right, let's compile and let's see if this is working. So we're going to have here our enemies, going to kill them, and now let's see if we can loot them. So this is a sphere enemy. I'm going to wait 1 second, and as you can see I got 2 spheres. From this one I got 3 because it was a sphere enemy as well. From this one I got 4 cubes, and for this one I got again 4. So this is pretty much all for today's video. I hope that you enjoyed it, and if you did, don't forget to leave a thumbs up. If you're new here and you learned something new, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with new videos. Thanks for watching, and I'm going to catch you in the next one. Goodbye.